Hello, everyone, and welcome to A Time for Change. I'm Alexis Christoforous, along with Kristin Myers and Sibile Marcellus. And today, we're going to be looking at the importance of mentors, having someone to guide you in your career. I certainly had a couple of wonderful mentors in my life, and I know it can make all the difference. In fact, studies have found tremendous gains for people who have been mentored, including higher pay, more promotions, and more job and career satisfaction.
Mentors can change a person's entire life. Just ask Steve Harvey, the actor, comedian, and very proud mentor.
So, Sima, when you say you have big dreams, I want everybody to listen to me on this, man. That's where it all starts. That's where it all starts. It starts with a big dream.
Steve Harvey certainly dreamt. One of the original kings of comedy, Harvey fought his way onto our televisions through unpaid stand-up gigs and odd jobs before landing his break as host of It's Showtime at the Apollo in the early 90s. Since then, the actor, author, businessman, and TV personality has taken home 6 Daytime Emmys and 14 NAACP Image Awards over his enduring career. But Harvey knows the value in not having to go it alone.
I do this because I care. I do this because I know there's potential in all of you.
Through the Steve and Marjorie Harvey Foundation, the comedian has made it his goal to provide youth outreach services and mentorship programs to those in need. With over 25,000 families and children impacted by programs in 2020 alone, its mission to foster excellence in urban and diverse communities seems well underway.
Now, I spoke with Steve Harvey, who joined us from his studios in Atlanta, about who helped him along the way and why he thinks mentors are critical, especially for young boys of color.
A boy without a male role model or a mentor is like an explorer without a map. It's just so hard to reach manhood. And then on top of that, it becomes extremely difficult to turn yourself into something without mentorship. And this really became really pronounced for me at my father's funeral. My father passed when I was 43, and it was one of the most crushing moments of my life. And I was sitting at my father's funeral looking at him, and I realized at that particular day that if it wasn't for this guy, that there's no way I'm sitting here today. I had already reached a measure of success by then. I was already had overcome a lot of major obstacles, didn't know I had a whole lot more to go, but I'd already overcome so many obstacles. And it was because of the mental attitude that he had instilled in me as a man, and his mentorship and what he taught me about work ethic and the principles of manhood. And the number one thing was do what you say you're going to do. After his passing, that's when I created the foundation, because I got back on the jet and I was going, wow, what happens to young boys who don't have what I had? And I thought about all the single mothers that were raising boys, and I said, wow, I got to do something about this. And that's when I started the program. It started me going to detention centers and youth prisons around the country. Even back when I was on Showtime at the Apollo before my dad passed, I would go and speak. I can't tell you how many I had a young man named Prince came up to me one time. He said, Mr. Harvey, you don't remember me, do you? I said, no, I don't. He said, my name is Prince. He said, you came to the Augusta Youth Detention Center and you spoke. He said, you changed my life. He's an engineer today. And he was in a juvenile detention center for 3 years. And so I know it's impactful and it's important, and mentorship is everything.
You know, I was told once that in the workplace, that Black employees especially don't just need mentors, but what they really need are sponsors. What does that mean for you, and how critical is that sponsorship to Black success?
Well, I mean, it's absolutely critical because, look, it's daunting in the workplace. Corporate America is daunting for anybody of any color. But I think it's fair to say that when you add the element of your skin color to it, you've got some more hurdles because you don't know who's in the supervisory capacity. And so not only do you need mentorship, you've got to have somebody who puts their hands on your shoulders and guides you through the maze. You got to have somebody going, okay, when this happens, turn left. When this happens, and it's usually somebody that's been there, done that. And it's critical because there's some extra hurdles you're going to have to deal with. I mean, look, I know the average American doesn't like to admit to that, but that's the way it is. It's just extra. You know, I've had to be more than my counterparts to get to where I am today, and I knew it. I had an executive one time at the WB said, Steve, if you say I told you this, I'll swear up and down I didn't. And because I was asking for a raise on my sitcom because Buffy and the Vampire, this little teenage girl, was making more money than me. But my ratings was higher than hers. And I went to him and asked for the raise. And he simply told me, he said, listen, because you have a Black sitcom, you fit into the multicultural budgets of most companies, and they just don't pay as much. Say, so you can have the same rating, but I can't pay you because your show doesn't bring in the same amount of dollars. And that was a rude awakening to me. And I'm going, well, wait a minute, I'm doing the same thing and better. And he says, well, I think you know by now you got to do more. And I really appreciated this guy for just being really that honest with me. And so a lot of that still goes on. So sponsorship is critical. You know, you got to have people, guys that have heard these conversations in the boardroom with people who were honest with them, that's saying, look, I know this is wrong, but this is what's happening. And this is how you circumvent it. This is how you get around it. And you got to have that in your life.
You know, I want to ask, you mentioned that you're at the height of your career right now. Mm-hmm. But as you look out ahead, what do you hope that your legacy is?
It's really funny, but the thing I've always asked God for was to make me relevant, not famous, but relevant. My legacy and what I'm working really hard is that when it's all over for me and I get put away, that people talk about the lives I've changed, the people I've affected. It matters most to me when I meet somebody like Prince who comes up to me and says, you talked to me at a youth detention center. I want somebody, when I leave this world, when they talk about me, or if they meet me now, they say, look, man, because of you, I didn't give up. Because of you, I stayed in there. Because of you, I found the courage and the words to forge forward. Because of you, I heard you say something that really clicked in me. So that's the most important thing for me right now. You know, I mean, that's a pretty cool thing to have about your life.
Now, Sibile, Alexis, that conversation with Steve Harvey was pretty long and far-reaching. He also spoke to us about his social justice efforts and work, and he really highlighted how important it is for a celebrity like himself and others to use their platform to talk about issues that are important. And we will, of course, have the remainder of that interview for everyone to watch next week. But coming up next, we'll be discussing an initiative that matches Black professionals with mentors at some of the world's most prestigious luxury brands. That conversation right after this.
Welcome back to A Time for Change. Gucci, Saint Laurent, Alexander McQueen. These are iconic fashion houses that are all part of the French luxury group, Kering. In a push to bring in a new generation of talent, Kering has partnered with a nonprofit called Black in Corporate to provide mentors to Black professionals. Joining us now is the president of Kering Americas, Laurent Claquin, and CEO and founder of Black in Corporate, Candace Mary Stewart. First, I'll start with Laurent. The fashion industry has a reputation for cutthroat competition. What is the culture really like at Kering's fashion houses, and how does this mentorship program fit into your search for talent?
Sure. I mean, the company culture is so important, and we are very fortunate to have our president and chairman, and also who owns the company, François-Henri Pinault, who always said, it's not only what you do, but it's the way you do it. So we already have like a sustainability approach, which is very holistic from the beginning, not only the environment, but social and community. So that's why we have a very strong diversity and inclusion strategy and journey. And that's why Black in corporate is so important, because what you do is not only inside the company. You need to have a 360 approach, and every step is important. You have to start with the beginning. So it's like scholarship, mentorship, apprenticeship, and this program is critical for that, to create the relationship within the company.
Candace, tell us a little bit about how this mentorship program works with Kering. And also, I'm curious, to your mind, what makes an effective mentor? It's not just enough to say you have one. That relationship has to be a strong one on both sides, the giver and the taker.
One, I'm just so thankful to Kering that we were able to partner together and, put this collaboration into fruition. It's important to have a mentor within this space. A lot of times, I always go back to the saying, you can't be what you can't see. And essentially, people need to be able to see someone that looks like them so that they have the opportunity to even think in a way that, hey, I can be that, or hey, I can, move up the ranks and be within that corporate, sector, and that I belong there. It's an initiative that we find to be so important. And for that natural integration to kind of happen with Kering, we are so grateful that, they even approached us in regards to this initiative.
Laurent, how did this partnership with Black in Corporate come about? And will some of the professionals who go through this mentorship program get hired by, say, Gucci or Saint Laurent?
So we have been introduced to Candace Marie through Gucci, actually. She has a contact in the Gucci company. That's how we met. And yes, for the mentees, it's the opportunity to create relationship, but also to participate in skill development workshop, to connect with different speakers and just, find their way in the company. And that's how, again, you create strong relationship and get into the company and also get into that industry. And we hope to recruit some of them. And you're right, it's not only Kering, but also all the brands and the houses of the group, from Gucci to Balenciaga to Alexander McQueen.
Laurent, I wanted to ask you about one of your brands, and that's Gucci. I know a couple of years ago, it was criticized for a black sweater that many people called racist. This was sort of like a vintage ski mask, and it featured a large mouth cover with big red lips on it. And at the time, Kering's chairman said, quote, "We have thousands of people working in America. How come no one raised a finger?" As an international brand, how do you stay sensitive to issues that may impact one culture or one geography differently and yet still stay relevant?
I think you need to have, that's a question of diversity and inclusion again. You need to have the right person around the table, because our industry and Kering, we are driven by imagination and creativity, and especially the luxury industry and the fashion industry is driven by creativity. And for the prerequisite of creativity is actually diversity. We need to celebrate the differences and the different point of view. That's how we spark creativity. So if we have the right person around the table, then we will be able to not repeat this mistake, but also to continue this journey of celebrating differences and different point of view.
And Laurent, speaking of differences and different points of view, so Kering operates based in Paris, but obviously you are chief here in America of selling those brands and those goods. So tell us about the cultural differences when it comes to the push to diversity when you're talking about, for example, in France and here in the US.
We try to create an environment which is very inclusive vis-a-vis all kind of diversity. Race is one of them, but also gender, sexual orientation, And all these sensibilities are really specific to the country, to the region. There's also another element which is very important in the United States, is that you can measure. So you really can help you to make priorities and really measure the impact of everything we do. So we actually can measure the number of, African American or Latinx or even now LGBTQIA+. So with all these tools and measure, we're able to create the different initiatives and program for the people and the employees. I give you an example. Now we also have what we call the baby leaves, which is actually 14 weeks of leave for all the employee, wherever they operate. And it's about the mother, but also the father, same-sex marriage, adoption, surrogacy, all kind of situation. And that's how you create impact and you create equality within the organization.
Candace, I want to get back to this particular mentorship program. I know that applications opened June 23rd. I believe they're closing in just a few days on July 2nd. How can people learn more about this? And tell us a little bit about the criteria you and Kering are looking for in these mentor candidates.
So they can go to blackandcorporate.com and you'll find out more information in regards to the program. And, when you ask about qualifications, and I feel like people get a little, misplaced or skewed when they think of mentors or mentees, but you can be of all levels in regards to being a mentee. So do not be discouraged if you feel like I'm too senior, I'm too junior to apply. We take applicants up until us actually having a mentor to support. So, even us, when we first started the Black and Corporate Mentorship Initiative, we took people up to the senior director level as mentees. You never get too old to actually have someone mentoring and guiding you. And if you want to, continue to grow in a field, we are here to, provide that to you. So even if you're not in, the luxury sector, that's a question that we've been asked, frequently. Can I apply if I've never been in the luxury sector before? Yes, please. That's the reason why we created this initiative, because a lot of people might not have access directly to have, these opportunities. And we wanted to create that pipeline, with this mentorship program where you can set foot in these places that you might not have been before.
And Candace, at the start of your career, you had an internship at Vogue. So tell us about the importance of mentorship in your life.
Yes, I say my career trajectory would not have been where it was without the multiple people that have played a role in my life. Again, that's why, I started the mentorship program, just because I knew how important it was for people to have access, to certain people, and that they wouldn't get that access without having those relationships. Have been at Vogue, have been at People Magazine, we've been at Refinery 29, Barney's, and the list goes on. And it was all due, I could, pinpoint direct people, that got me into those doors, who said things on my behalf. You guys talked about sponsorship before. My name was mentioned in rooms that I wasn't in, and that's how I got certain opportunities. Not that I had the criteria, I had the resume, I had the, education, but again, that extra push from having a mentor play that role in your life. I wouldn't be where I was without it. And essentially, this whole partnership came together because of a relationship. And if that doesn't speak volumes in itself, one conversation can make the difference that we're, even sitting here talking to you all today. And mentorship, it's everything and very important for this sector.
Laurent, I was just wondering, I would love to get your take on how much more diversity, or what needs to be done to bring more diversity to the runway, to fashion magazines. I saw a recent stat, overall 41% of models this past Fashion Week were people of color, and that's a slight increase from the prior year. But does more need to be done, and how do you get it done?
I think the natural step after diversity is inclusion, and it's two different things. It's not only to check the box, but you need to create the environment for the people to feel valued and respected and including. You don't want only to invite people to the party, you want to invite people to dance. So we need to give everyone a voice around the table to actually continue this journey and have a real impact.
Partnering for Change, Laurent Claquin and Candace Mary Stewart, thanks so much. It was great to have you on.
Thank you for having us.
And still ahead, some great advice on mentoring from one of the stars of The Office.
All right, welcome back to A Time for Change. One more quick thought about mentoring before we let you go. This one comes from writer, comedian, and producer Mindy Kaling, you know her from The Office, in her book, Why Not Me? Here's what she had to say. You take mentoring where you can find it, even if it's not being offered to you. Have you ever used your neighbor's Wi-Fi when it wasn't on a password? If you have the opportunity to observe someone at work, you are getting mentoring out of them, even if they are unaware or resistant. Make a list of the people you think would make the greatest mentors and try to get close enough to steal their Wi-Fi. Words to live by, I guess. Sometimes you really can find mentors in the most unlikely places. Before we wrap, Kristin, just want to congratulate you on a great interview with Steve Harvey at the top of our show. One thing I learned about him was how his dad was such an influence in his life and actually influenced him to become a mentor. I was curious what you learned after interviewing him.
You know, Alexis, I think I was most surprised to hear, and some folks might have just missed it, essentially about those pay differences between himself and, of course, Sarah Michelle Gellar, who played Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You know, he mentioned about how his show, the Steve Harvey Show, had brought in higher ratings, was bringing in more money, more viewers, more eyeballs. And when he went to ask for more money, and he described Sarah Michelle Gellar as almost like a kid because he was more than twice her age, he was essentially told that he could not be paid as much as her because he was coming out of a different budget, even though his worth was, frankly, if we're going to use just the pure capitalistic metrics, was frankly higher than hers. I thought that that was just so surprising and so sad and interesting. And he went on to talk about Hollywood and how, frankly, not much has changed. And I think we've heard that from a couple of people just on this show alone, having those conversations about diversity in Hollywood. He said some things have changed. Unfortunately, so many things haven't.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know we're going to have more of that interview with Steve Harvey because he talked about a whole bunch of things, including crypto and NFT. So we want to hear all about that. That's going to run in next week's Time for Change. For today, though, I'm Alexis Christoforous for Kristin Myers and Sibile Marcellus. Thanks, as always, for joining us. Stay with us. More Yahoo Finance Live to come right after this.